Welcome back to another video. I am Ramona. We're doing some more encounters with with angels and demons. Could be aliens. I don't know. There's always that theory out there. But I do find this topic quite fascinating. And so we're doing another video. Ready? This is story number 1. Ready? I just finished a really in-depth conversation with my closest friends after a long workout and some jiu-jitsu wrestling for a bit of fun. The topic of the conversation was spirituality, and God religion. I'm not religious, but I've always believed in a higher creator or power or energy or something of that sort. I'm still not sure I believe if it's God in a Christian sense or it's just from another time. One of my friends is Seventh-day Adventist and has been raised in the church and is a believer in God and Jesus and tries to do his best to follow the path. The other 2 friends are like me, not religious, but do believe there's something greater than us. However, during the conversation, we came to the topic of evil and good, including demons and angels. Thinking about it in depth was like what brought me to a realization, to an extent that I may have had a near encounter with something truly evil and demonic, but I was saved by angels sent by God. In mid-December last year, I was hiking alone through the Mount Olympus National Park in Greece, just above the town of, Lacharo. And honestly, I've had a lovely walk, just a day hike. I was staying in this place for a couple of nights as I wanted to see Mount Olympus. After exploring a few tracks and seeing some gorgeous scenery, I walked up to the track that I led uphill. I wanted to see the view of the town the last week. So I was on this track and I believed that I may have almost encountered something truly evil. As I was nearing the clearing of the viewpoint, I began to feel a deep sense of existential dread and fear. My heart sinking to my stomach, sort of thing. But I ignored the feeling, assuming I had just been traveling alone in the country with no other English speakers for too long. That was getting in my head. Though it was when I reached the clearing that I noticed a big stray dog that ran out from the tree line. I was watching me up the hill about 20, 30 miles away, or maybe not miles. Anyway, it says I'm assuming miles. I was wagging its tail and looking at me. That's way too far away. Also, for context here, a lot of strays around the area. I think I would have been at least 100 plus in my travels around, again, Lacharo. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But none were ambitious or brave enough to seemingly stalk me like that until then. All the other strays I walked past would have barked defensively, but would have run off when I yelled at them. Yelling didn't work for this dog, and so I ended up having to throw some rocks at it to get it to move far enough away up the hill that I was comfortable enough to walk back down the hill while still keeping an eye on it. It did actually follow me at a distance as I walked down the hill. This whole time, that awful feeling of terror and impending doom was still there and got no better. It wasn't until I walked maybe 500 back down the track that I encountered some other hikers. I think I'd only seen 1 or 2 other people my entire hike before them, so the park wasn't busy that day. The second I laid eyes on these 2 men I encountered, the feeling of dread lifted immediately, and I was placed with the most peaceful, joyous, warm feeling that honestly is so powerful, I don't even know how to word it properly. Also, the stray dog ran off before I crossed paths with him. One spoke only Greek, but the other knew a little English. Thinking back, I truly believe these men weren't human and they were actually angels sent by God. I believe that the feeling of dread and fear was God trying to warn me to turn back and believe there may have been something evil or demonic waiting for me around the corner from that clearing, though I have no idea what it may have been. I think that God may have placed that big, hungry, stray dog in order to scare me from continuing, as I had ignored the first warning, being the onset of a terrible gut feeling. Furthermore, I believe these men really were angels and not real people who God sent to save me from whatever evil there was around that corner. I really can't believe to describe just how immaculate the feeling I felt in the presence was. In a way, I think the presence of the angels scared away that demon that might have been waiting for me. After crossing paths with them, I continued to walk back down, went back to the Lachura township safely, and enjoyed the rest of my day. It wasn't until a 3-hour conversation with my friends tonight that I realized they may have been angels, and it was the presence of a demon I was feeling when approaching the clearing, and now I think back, it makes perfect sense. Another I've had is that God put me in that situation with a demon, and angels knowing that I would have to go have this conversation with my friends, and then would realize that it was a demon and angels I encountered, causing me to turn to God and faith. There really was angels that were sent by God that day. I think that from now on, I'll put my complete faith in God, always trust his judgment and plan, which is not something I'd ever thought I'd say until now. I wrote this post to try not to share, to share my experiences and also to ask some more people who are Christians about what it could have been around that awful corner. And if you think that I was right about the angels, since I have had more knowledge, obviously, since you have more knowledge than I do on the topic of angels and demons. If you've had similar experiences, please share. Story 2. I have had similar experiences. It's hard to explain to someone who hasn't had something happen, but I believe that you are right and that there is more to this. Angels and demons, who knows for sure, but for whatever reason, God definitely didn't want you to continue on where you're going. It's impossible to know why you experience those feelings that day. I do believe God can utilize your gut feelings. People or animals to alter our path in order to steer us out of harm's way. I also believe God works on hearts through various experiences to bring us closer to him. A couple of years ago, I was loading groceries in my car in an empty parking lot on a hot summer's day. I was approached by a rough-looking young homeless man. As he walked towards me, he donned a large black coat and he put the hood over his head. I had a terrible feeling that something bad was going to happen. I was 20 and was somewhat of a small female, and I threw my groceries into my car as fast as possible, but I wasn't quick enough. Unfortunately, he only ended up asking for cash, but I 100% believe he initially planned on robbing me. Why else did he don a heavy coat and hood as he was approaching me on a hot summer day? I don't know what deterred me, but I thank God that I was protected. There you go. Enough said. Story 2. This is 3. Whoops, I can't count. Thank you for sharing that experience. I am personally fully confident I've encountered angels. One is connected to my testimony of how I became a Seventh-day Adventist. Another encounter some years ago, after that, with a man and a woman whose circumstances caused me to meet up with an elderly person in need. Some key takeaways to consider. God does not work in union with evil angels. The thought can be had by some that since God rules all things and made all things, including the once good angels that are now fallen, demon, that he used them to accomplish some goal. That isn't the case. While it is truly biblical that the evil angels include Satan, needed God's say-so to act, as illustrated in the book of Job in the Bible, it's more of the fact that God has set boundaries of what they can and cannot do. They, like us, still retain their free agency to act for or against the principles of righteousness upon which God's kingdom is built. They, like us, will both have to give an answer and face the rewards of whatever choices they make during this time. God can also use humans to fulfill his goals. While I'm with you that believing that these are possible messengers from heaven, God is able to lead good people into paths where he knows they can act out on his principles for good and to help those in need. If, however, no one is available, or perhaps in your case, it isn't, we need God to pull out all the stops to send genuine messengers of heaven to save a soul, a person he seeks to save. There you go. Okay, so the next one was to be story number 4. Should people encounter angels or demons as well? Okay, or shouldn't people encounter angels as well as demons? All that stuff. So JWs are so concerned about demons leaving the burner on the stove or inhabiting a Cabbage Patch doll, but shouldn't angels be something that we encounter just often? I don't know what this person is talking about. I'm not a Jehovah's Witness. We're just reading this, right? So let's find it. True story. I once experienced sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis. And when I asked, "Who are you?" it replied, "I am Satan." Another experience was being in white tried to break into my apartment. It had faces similar to the static of a TV, but brighter. I brushed it off, but then I saw a video on YouTube about a CERN Goddard ceremony. I think 2008, 2009. I don't remember. But it was an underground train tunnel. In this video, I saw a representation of a fallen angel, and it was similar to what I saw in my dream nightmare. To this day, I find it very interesting. Hard to see, but they have a picture of it. But the mask is wearing is the same design. Shiny, static. I'm still confused whether or not it was coincidence or an attack. Was at a movie theater talking to a random Catholic dude years ago. He said that he found God because he saw a face before him one night. He thought it was the face of a demon that he was powerless to turn away from. I'd had sleep paralysis dreams before about demonic forces where I could try to scream Jehovah in my dreams, but I couldn't because of the sleep paralysis. Thankfully, I did my research and learned how to realize that it was a dream instead of leaning onto the belief that I was being attacked by wicked spirit forces, unlike the guy I was talking to. And the reply was, what do you think of when it mentions we must see things around the spiritual side and not in the flesh? Not saying that it as fact per se, but more like in the world where it is imperial reasoning to this fleshly world and its occurrences, but only because we see it through the flesh. Yet we don't fully understand the spiritual, or at least embrace it. It is beyond us and inescapable. Like you said, it's beyond us and inescapable. This set of Holy Scripture, which set of Holy Scriptures are you going to use to describe the spirit world? There are many schools of faith. Why would I privilege one over the other? Do I assume they're all true at the same time? I can't know what every book says about spirit creatures. What about those teachings that have been lost to time or edited out of the canon? Surely not all can be true, and how can you really know? Okay, so they're going back and forth and deep-seated questions of faith and let's see. This would be story 6. I saw a creepy old man once after sleep paralysis, ghost, and I gave him the middle finger. But admittedly, I have a problem with authority, so no lie, I did too. It was weird. I was at a baseball field walking in front of him, but this old white man just sitting on the bench gave off weird vibes. Walked past him, then decided to turn around. He then proceeded to attack me. That was so weird. I don't know if that'd be a demonic thing, though. I mean, that sounds just like maybe just an offensive, crazy dude. Just a crazy person. But, I could be wrong too. Yeah. Let's see. More supernatural encounters, angels, demons, aliens. They're opening it up now. I have been studying about the encounter recently from Ra's course. I'm very curious to hear people's experiences here. Please share your motivation and what kind of encounters you've had, if any. So let's read through some, right? So my transference is theist to anti-theist. My motivation is hope. What does that mean? Does this mean I'm going to be encountering demons because I don't want that at all? I grew up super religious, but I'd say I'm very spiritual. I realize that I have association with God, with my dad. While I believe the Bible is incredibly corrupt and untrustworthy, I do believe in the universe and trusting it. This is also something I have been wondering if so many insights is appreciated. So any insights are appreciated. Do not tell anybody about your encounters. Okay. Well, let's read this one because that sounds quite disturbing. This would be stories now. Let me give you a physical image so that you can understand what I mean by the attachment of the 1, 2, 3 forms in us. When you look at a body graph, a normal human design body graph, and you know that the body or the shape of the body is encased with a graphic triangle. And one of the things you'll notice is that the head center sticks out past the head. It's sort of like it makes a peak there. Now, it's in this area outside of your physical body that our personality crystal is. Okay. I've never heard of this. I've talked about this with all kinds of cosmology courses. To really understand, your personality crystal is not in the form itself. It isn't. It is a passenger and is sitting up there at the crown of the head center and is sitting out there outside of the vehicle. Now, in my metaphor for this vehicle, what this vehicle is, I've often talked about it, we have a limousine and we have a design crystal, which is the vehicle, and we have the magnetic monopoly into the driver. That's the driver, sorry, and we have the back seat. Back seat's up there against the body, okay? Here's the back seat. This is where the passenger sits. Now, an angel comes along and you have an encounter with an angel, but unfortunately, you're not going to tell someone about it. That angel's just hanging around. And it will open the door, and step into the back seat and sit down beside you and close the door. And you have a companion. Now, it's not like they're hanging onto your hip. They're riding in the back seat with your personality crystal. Now, the moment that you put the complex dynamic million crystal object inside your little personality crystal, you'd be surprised how much impact that has. It really does change the way your personality crystal is going to filter those things. Now, there are people who know about these things, but of course, again, it gets all fucked up in the way they translate it because they don't understand the mechanics. The idea of walk-ins, the idea that there are forces that take you over, and you have all this stuff. I've been taken over by this and taken over by that, blah, blah, blah. It's just somebody opening up the back door and they're sitting there beside you, back there, whatever. So it's something to understand about the way in which they attach to you. They climb in and they stay there. Now that's 1, 2, 3. what you'll notice, 456, is that the passenger locks the fucking windows and the door and says, okay, one little brief encounter, okay? Ha, because I do not want to sit with you. This would kill me. Very different than the 123, where they're designed to be in there in the back seat with you and say, look out the window that way. Look out the window that way. See that the answer is to get rid of your fear. See where it is that you're going to be able to fulfill your hopelessness or hopefulness. They get right in there and sit, and you can't just throw them out. You have passengers. And think about it. If you're a fourth color and you're transferred to the first color, you've still got stinking angel sitting in the back seat of your limo, and you can't get the bitch out, and it's not your bitch at all. You can't get her out. She's just telling you what to do. I'm going to be completely honest. I didn't understand any of that. But that's okay. I don't have to understand everything. That's okay. This person says, my motivation is fear. My transference is from communalistic to separatist. The encounters I've had, I suppose I could see as angels. I've always known where there were entities of some sort, but so far it's been hard for me to register their names in my mind, but I can visualize them. Started when I was really a little kid or baby. I remember seeing things the adults couldn't see. It led to my religious parents being paranoid of me and saying I had a big imagination. As I got older, I assumed they were tulpas. Never heard that word. Once I got into the occult, I saw them as my HGA of some sort. I don't know what that stands for. When I really consider it, I feel as though I am seeking God, both consciously and subconsciously. That has always been my intention with psychedelics and magic in my career, but angels makes more sense. When I go looking, I am always surprised by just how many beings I find instead of just the one overarching God that I thought I was looking for and what my ex-religion suggested. I was always hesitant to use the term angels because I have a lot of religious trauma, and that name carried too much baggage for me in the past. I've started to decondition that name now and I think as I become more accepting of angels, what they really are, I am more open to having more experiences with them. Okay. Story 9. It is obvious that my experience from you was trying. I think that the voice, whatever it was, had to step down its frequency enormously in order for me to have a sense of, oh, this is the voice. Basically, this is what we do. So, for example, if you're someone who has had a first color, now please understand something about this. Right now, I'm not talking about transference, and everything is in this transference. I'm not going to have these encounters if you're in transference. What you're going to get is a real problem, and I'll explain that. I lost my place. The thing to understand right here, right now, is I'm just going to speak theoretically. If you're a first color being, your motivation is something that if you encounter one of these bundles, you will naturally assume that you're an angel or angelic or that quality. In other words, this is the way in which we stepped down the frequency and interpret it. If you're a first color being, because of the way it works, it's not so much that the thing you're connected to is in fact an angel. I want to be very clear that these constructs have emerged out of the way in which we deconstruct the frequency and to take in the lowest level of that frequency. I have no idea what these people are talking about. I'm trying to understand it, but it's a little odd to me. At the same time, there may be a certain quality to that. For me, it's clear that it's coming from the motivation itself, and these are just the things we're interested in. Now, if you tell the truth is that we're not interested in anything other than transferred frequencies, because it's only the transferred frequencies that, because they lack cognition, are the ones most deeply impacted, not necessarily in the positive sense, but deeply impacted by the potential of encounter, because they really don't get to have this essential communication because of what that encounter is about. That is, think about what these are. These are potential energy or crystal bundles. They're small ones, relatively speaking, and they want to be like the big boys. They don't have any difference. It's not like they know they are a minor bundle, and they are a byproduct of this change in the program. They don't know any of that. They are just simply a bundle filtering the neutrino ocean, and they have a quality that allows them to hone in, if you will. And what they hone in on is the motivational frequency. This is where they get in there. You get your angels. The angels are here to guide you to the truth. That's what angels are actually for. They're here to help you get through the fear. Now, of course, that would be the communication, if you are dealing with it, is your true self. But of course, the people that meet angels or can meet angels who are in the transference, who are acting out of the fourth color, they don't get that at all. These are people who think they talked to God, and they didn't. Not only do they not talk to God, but oh boy, they are going to be given information that is just going to disturb them.
And of course, so much of our understanding of these forces, because they are conscientious or conscious forces, it is directly attributed to the fact that the major majority of humanity is not self. This is what these bundles are connected to. This is where they have had their impact. And boy, do they ever. If you see what happens to people who say to you, I've seen an angel, or I've seen demons, or I've seen ghosts, you know what happens to these people. They become obsessed. It becomes their whole trip. And it doesn't matter whether there is anything to be learned or gained, because nothing is. They simply become obsessed with the fact that there is an encounter, and of course, they don't get the right information, and everybody else who looks at them thinks they're slightly off. This is the program. These forces are part and parcel of the whole way in which the homogenized belief systems and the homogenized fear of the forces and all of these things are maintained. For the not self to have such an encounter, they're going to be in trouble. It's going to end up plaguing them. I have met many of these people, and whether or not they experience truth or not, or whether they are embellishing it or not, whatever the case may be, their assumption is that they've actually met an alien or ghost or whatever. This is the work of the program, and it locks them into that motivation. That is, it locks them into the transference because they want it again. As a matter of fact, most New Age people are looking for this. If any of these are looking for it, which means they are in a way being seduced to transference because of where they lay, in which the experience of this phenomenon is most deeply felt. If your personality is awake and you have an encounter, it's a rarity. And it's a rarity in the sense that it will serve you and not the bundle. My encounter with the voice did not serve the voice. I am not capable of providing anything in return. I simply got the incredible advantage of the knowledge. True encounter is about information, nothing else. And of course, the not self-transference encounter is full of all kinds of distorted information. So we all have kinds of myths about what these things are. And we all have all kinds of people telling us about their conversations with them, their channeling of them, their this and that. And all of it is different information. A lot of that went over my head, but I hope it didn't over yours. Hope you understand it and hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, share, subscribe, do all the things, comment, engage in that algorithm, and I'll talk to you later on. Bye.